Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Shishi Jaya Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shishi Kodanitai Maya Purusha Ki Jai Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. In every town and village, Prabhupada also organized Nairobi's first outdoor kirtan performance. The devotees went to Kama Kunji Park's largest tree, a historical landmark connected with Kenyan independence. As they stood chanting beneath the tree, a large crowd gathered and many began chanting. Some even danced in a sort of tribal shuffle. One young man stepped forward and offered to translate Brahmananda's speech into Swahili. The devotees distributed sweet bundi, and the people in the crowd really enjoyed themselves. The whole affair was a great success. Rushing back to Prabhupada, Brahmananda reported on the wonderful kirtan in a park. Brahmananda felt the same emotion as in 1966 when he had reported to Prabhupada the success of the first kirtan at Washington Square Park in New York City. Now, as then, results had been successful. Prabhupada, by his personal example and by his pushing Brahmananda Swami, had within a few days changed the emphasis of preaching in Africa from Indians to Africans. The night of Srila Prabhupada's lecture at the University of Nairobi, 2,000 African students filled the auditorium, with hundreds more standing outside to look in through the doors and windows. First, Prabhupada had Bhutta Bhavana, a black American disciple, deliver a short introduction using some borrowed Swahili phrases. Harambai, he began, which means, welcome, brothers, let us work together. One word has so much meaning, Harambai. Then Prabhupada spoke, the whole world is simply hankering and lamenting. You African people are now hankering to be like the Europeans and Americans. But the Europeans have lost their empire. They are now lamenting. So one party is hankering, one party is lamenting. We have come to these African countries to invite all intelligent Africans to come and understand this philosophy and distribute it. You are trying to develop yourselves, so develop very soundly, but don't imitate the Americans and Europeans who are living like cats and dogs. Such civilization will not stand. The atom bomb is already there. As soon as the next war breaks out, all the skyscraper buildings and everything else will be finished. Try to understand from the real standpoint, the real view of human life. That is the Krishna consciousness movement. And we request you to come and try to understand this philosophy. Thank you very much. His Divine Grace C.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 6, Chapter 11. Text number 21. Aham samadaya mano yatahana. Aham samadaya mano yatahana. Sankarshanas charanara vinde. Sankarshanas charanara vinde. Tvadvajiraramho lulitagram yapasho. Tvadvajiraramho lulitagram yapasho. Gati muniriyami apavidhaloka. Gati muniriyami apavidhaloka. Aham samadaya mano yatahana. Sankarshanas charanara vinde. Tvadvajiraramho lulitagram yapasho. Gati muniriyam yapavidhaloka. Aham samadhaya mano yatahana. Sankarshanas charanara vinde. Tvadvajiraramho lulitagram yapasho. Gati muniriyam yapavidhaloka. Lulitagram yapasho. Gati muniriyam yapavidhaloka. Aham samadaya mano yatahana. Sankarshanas charanara vinde. Tadvajramho lulitagram yapasho. Gati muniriyam yapavidhaloka. Aham samadaya mano yatahana. Sankarshanas charanara vinde. Tvadvajramho lulitagram yapasho. Gati muniriyam yapavidhaloka. Aham, I, samadaya, fixing firmly. Manaha, the mind. Yata, just as. Aha, said. Naha, our. Sankarshanaha, Lord Sankarshan. Tat charana aravinde. At his lotus feet, Tvat Vajra of your thunderbolt, Ramhaha, by the force, Lulita, thorn, Gramya, of material attachment, Pashaha, the rope, Gatim, the destination, Mune, of Narada Muni and other devotees, Yami, I shall achieve, Apavidha, giving up, Lokaha, this material world, where one desires all kinds of impermanent things. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. By the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of material bondage and shall give up this body and this world of material desires. Fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sankarshan, I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narada Muni, just as Lord Sankarshan has said. Purport. The words aham, samadhaya, manaha indicate that the most important duty at the time of death is to concentrate one's mind. If one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, Vishnu, Sankarshan, or any Vishnu Murti, his life will be successful. To be killed while fixing his mind at the lotus feet of Sankarshan, Vritasura asked Indra to release his Vajra or thunderbolt. He was destined to be killed by the thunderbolt given by Lord Vishnu. There was no question of its being baffled. Therefore, Vritrasura requested Indra to release the thunderbolt immediately, and he prepared himself by fixing his mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. A devotee is always ready to give up his material body, which is described herein as Gramya Pasha, the rope of material attachment. The body is not at all good. It is simply a cause of bondage to the material world. Unfortunately, even though the body is destined for destruction, fools and rascals invest all their faith in the body and are never eager to return home back to Godhead. Om Gyanaatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shirada Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarnam. The translation again. By the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of material bondage and shall give up this body and this world of material desires. Fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sankarshan, I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narada Muni, just as Lord Sankarshan has said. So the goal of life and everything what we do in Krishna consciousness, it is actually a preparation for departing from this material world. Ante Narayana Smriti. Ante means end, Narayana is Narayana or Krishna, and Smriti means to remember. So everything what we do in Krishna consciousness is to build up to this point that we remember Krishna at the time of death. And it's easy when it's easy, when there are, when things are going um, well in life, when we're going through some patch of good karma, it's kind of easy to some extent, to fix the mind on something when the mind is not disturbed and relaxed. But makes it a lot. It is a lot more difficult when there are challenges, when there are difficulties. And as we can see, uh, these difficulties can be compared to a thunderbolt. Okay, the final thunderbolt, of course, is departure from this material world. There is some statement in the Shastras that the feeling at the time of departure is just to give a little indication, is like 100 of scorpions biting the body. It's a very, very intense, and not just the pain, but more the pain of leaving everything behind what we have accumulated in this material world, whether it's physically, what we achieved certain status or certain we build a house or we gathered so many relatives and friends and relationships. It becomes extremely painful to leave all that behind. So in speaking about, the pain of scorpions is not just the pain that is there, physical pain, but the pain of attachment. And we all experience, when our attachment is challenged, whatever we may be attached to, it is really, really painful. And to the degree we are attached, that very same degree is painful when attachment is challenged. Therefore, this kind of Srimad Bhagavatam again and again condemns this attachment to the material world, because it causes so much pain, and it's temporarily, it's all gonna be finished at the time of death. So it's not something really to concentrate our mind, uh, and whatever we concentrate our mind to, that will become attached. That is Bhagavad Gita is explaining to us that whatever we contemplate, we become attached, and it leads eventually into strong attachment called kama or lust, and that leads into frustration, anger, and wrath when we don't get that we don't get what we want, when we don't get what we want. So it's not the way to go, focusing on material objects, material attachments, and everything what is temporarily is eventually will cause us a lot of pain, and whatever we attach to, that we will remember at the time of death, and that will give us another body and another birth, because we remember some material object, material relationship, or something like that, and then again we start again and again and again and again. So really, we have to fix our mind on Krishna. This is the advice of all the scriptures, all the saintly people since time immemorial, that we have to fix our mind on Krishna. And in this age, it's very, very uh, made. Lord Chaitanya has made for us very easy. Is by fixing our mind on the holy name, that is equal, is non-different from smriti, from remembering Krishna. These are things are synonymous. Chanting the holy name and hearing the holy name and remembering Krishna by acharyas is considered um, exactly the same thing. Our minds are very disturbed that is the symptom of Kali Yuga. There's so many challenges and problems, but somehow or another we have to practice this remembrance of Krishna. So some of the difficulties and challenges in our life can be compared with the bad weather. The clouds, they cover the sky, the sun becomes covered, we cannot see it, and sometimes even Krishna is not so visible. You may wonder, where is Krishna in all things that can happen in our life? And there is sometimes even a thunder. And speaking about the thunderbolt, there is sometimes even a thunderbolt, and some things that can happen in our life. It may feel like electric shock of the thunderbolt. And when we're going through those different shocks and challenges and difficulties, are we remembering Krishna? Are we remembering Krishna? This is our ultimate shelter. But the natural tendency of the challenges and the difficulties when they're going through is to take shelter of the things that we used to take shelter, directly or indirectly. There are so many things that we used to take shelter, and or more on a external level. I mean, when people go through various types of stress and challenges and difficulties, they sometimes take shelter of eating more, like some externally uh, kind of coping with the challenge, or the people outside who are not practicing Krishna consciousness, they take shelter of intoxication or gambling or meat eating, illicit sex life. So these are becomes the temporary shelters of material existence, or somebody becomes greedy and try to build a certain empire, and etc. So various types of shelters people take, but they are temporary masters. They do not last. They will not last long. The relationships and the wealth and etc. will not help and will not protect really. And you can see, no matter how powerful people become, the death eventually takes everything away, or some another thunderbolt can take things away, because especially in this age of Kali, there is so many, the karma that people have is not so great. So even they may temporarily enjoy, some great opulence and situation. It's all comes and goes. And Krishna is always testing us, is always uh, kind of educating us that we are not become attached to whatever situation we are, that we ultimately have to be attached to Krishna. That is our only shelter, no matter what happens in life, no matter what situation in our life. We have to learn to take shelter and remember Krishna. And of course, we are not inviting the troubles, but Kunti Maharani, she is exemplifying that whatever difficulties she went through, and Pandavas and every single great devotee in Srimad Bhagavatam, whatever challenge they always remember Krishna. That's teaching us again and again and again to remember Krishna in the difficult and challenging circumstances. That is the ultimate goal. And because she says that whenever we remember you, we conquer this repeated birth and death. We are coming closer and closer to the goal. Our goal is always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So these challenges, difficulties, bad weather, thunderbolts, is all meant to increase our remembrance of Krishna, increase our intensity, because also we can become kind of lulled by some external circumstances, and some good patches in our Krishna consciousness, that everything is fine, and kind of that intensity of Krishna consciousness and it goes down, and our practice can become mechanical, our chanting can become mechanical, our interactions can become mechanical. But Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, whatever the circumstances in our life, we have to intensely practice. We have to be urgent. It has to be the sincere urgency to take shelter, sincere urgency to hear the holy name, to take shelter of philosophy. The philosophy becomes so much alive when we're going through the patch of difficult weather, and it is a challenge. Will we take shelter of our false ego? Will we take shelter of the previous things that used to take shelter? Will we hold on into whatever situation is there in life? Are we allowed to Krishna's plan to manifest, Krishna's mercy to manifest, and be attached to that, to be attached to Krishna's mercy, to be attached to Krishna's plan, and let things go that needs to go in our, so that we can move forward in Krishna consciousness. So therefore we need to intensify our spiritual practices. When the difficulties are there, we need to increase our remembrance, and we need to make the philosophy of Krishna consciousness alive, that we have to truly practice it, what it actually means, various devotional qualities that are there in that we learn in Krishna consciousness, how to apply them, how they apply in the situation, how the philosophy applies in different situations that we are going through. And that really pushes us to live the philosophy, and that increases our opportunity to connect with Krishna and increase our faith in Krishna and see his divine hand guiding us, inspiring us, and purifying us in the all different circumstances, and we can seek his divine hand and mercy, and then when we go through those challenges and we sit down to chant, then we experience the presence of Krishna, experience the mercy of Krishna, and that's what is gonna purify our hearts and make it a proper residence, become a proper residence and place for Krishna to reside. And all those things are there for us to help us to achieve that perfection of remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. So are there any questions or comments on these points? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Rupa. A very, very stimulating class. I was just wondering, I was listening to Srila Prabhupada yesterday, and he was saying, Tatena Kampam Shishukshamano, you know, that the devotee sees that whatever he's going through is it's just a fraction, you know, a token of what is due to come his way. So I could see how that principle, you would apply that principle to yourself. But if you applied that principle to somebody else, would that be considered offensive?
To think that they are.
Yeah, I was just thinking because, where was I reading? I think it was Madhuri Kandamani, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur was saying that we should be careful when we look on a devotee. He may be bereft of all his possessions, or he may contract some fatal disease, and then another fellow devotee may look at him and think, oh, he's just getting a sinful reaction, or he's getting his karma, or he's getting, you know, whatever he's getting what he deserves. So for the devotee to feel like that, that's okay. But how do we look at that? Then if we see a devotee is suffering, do we just see that that's a token of what he should be due, or and if we don't,
So anyway, I try to answer this to whatever understand the question is. This principle of karma and the token reaction is meant to be applied to ourselves, and not the way how we look at others, because then you know, there are some traditions who got or maybe not the traditions, but more the application of the law of karma, and it can happen to us too. That they look at something what is happening, this is their karma, so they're supposed to suffer. It actually hardens the heart. It's not very compassionate just to see somebody suffering and say, okay, this is your karma. So good luck, and therefore it's not doesn't exemplify Vaishnava principles or even like a simple principles of compassion. So whenever the suffering is there, we should um, help. Devotee wants to help para dukkha dukhi. Devotee, when he sees suffering is there, he wants to find a way to help. And of course, there are many different types of suffering, and we know the ultimate solution is Krishna consciousness. And we can see again and again and again through the pages of Bhagavatam, there's many challenges and difficulties and etc. And then a saintly person comes, sometimes it's the Lord Brahma, sometimes it's Narada Muni, sometimes Agastya Muni, who shed a light on the situation, because you can become absorbed in this whatever is happening. It can be like a very, very traumatic. Even speaking about Vritrasura, Maharaj Chitraketu, when his son has died and was poisoned, actually, is not just he was hankering for son, and it after long this hankering, by the mercy of saintly people, he got a son, but other queens become envious of the one of the queens who had a son, and they poisoned the son. So imagine how traumatic, soul destroying it had to be. But then this Agastya Muni and Narada Muni showed up on the scene, and they shed a light and enlightened him. This is what is actually going on. So often, so much suffering can be in our life due to kind of limited vision of conditioned soul and attachment and etc. And a saintly person can come and illuminate the situation, and or we should approach a saintly person to help us to illuminate situation. And it is described that the potency of a saintly person is that the greatest calamity can uh, eventually look like a greatest fortune in hindsight. If you look in some of the biggest challenges we went through in our Krishna consciousness, and if you look back in the hindsight, and especially if we are more Krishna conscious, or if some saintly person can explain to us what's going on, it may seem like a greatest fortune. And some of the things that our like our movement is focusing on, and our priorities, as ISKCON leaders, actually came out of some difficulties and calamities and challenges. For example, there is one place that went through extreme challenges, but out of that place, a lot of saintly people came out, like Radhanath Swami, Devamrita Swami, um, what is this American devotee? Chandramoli Swami. Like challenging situations can produce saintly people as a result, and also a lot of wonderful projects came out as well. Like you have, Radhanath Swami's, projects, and in New Zealand, there were Mita Swami's projects, or His Holiness Shivaram Swami as well. He actually relocated to Europe, and now his project is amazing. So many of those difficult challenges is purifies and brings a deeper understanding of Krishna consciousness. So yeah, we definitely should not criticize when the difficulties are going there. We should see that is the seed of something wonderful that's going to happen in the future, as the purification is taking place, as Lord's plan is unfolding and revealing itself. We can see that the seed of something wonderful. And like speaking about priorities, devotee care, for example, that our movement is trying to implement. um, or very strong emphasis on education, which is number one in devotee care, in education and spiritual education. Those priorities has came out of historically not prioritizing those things. Eventually the great thinkers of the movement realized that this is our top priorities, that prevents a lot of things that can happen potentially and go wrong. So this is our top priority, that addresses a lot of challenges at the root. So I hope that answers your question. It's about the challenge. You ask what is the challenges and difficulties, how you should look at devotees, and my answer is that this is the seed of something wonderful to come.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the class. Just a question. So, how would you say, like, you mentioned Krishna's mercy? What is it like, Krishna's mercy? How to understand, and maybe if it can be described?
Yes, Krishna's mercy sometimes is not so easy to appreciate. In a more beginning stages of Krishna consciousness, you can see like a demigods, for example, they are seeing certain things as Krishna's mercy. They asking for something material, or even many people who are like different types of people who approach Krishnas, who are struggling, who are looking for, who are suffering, who are looking for economical development, acquisitive. They approach Krishna with some specific desire to be fulfilled, and if that desire gets fulfilled, if their suffering is alleviated, if they get some better economic situation, they get what they want, PhD or the car or whatever, or they find some knowledge, then they would consider that this is Krishna's mercy, that my desire has been fulfilled, so this is Krishna's mercy. Or demigods, they struggling, they called actually for Vishnu's help, and because Vishnu has provided the weapon that they could counteract their suffering, that would they consider Krishna's mercy. And for sadhaka, for our practice, for practicing devotee, as well, devotee may have some, aspirations that are outside the realm of pure devotional service, and Krishna may fulfill those desires, and that could increase our faith. It is encouraged that even if you have material desires, is instead of going to demigods, at least approach Krishna and ask Krishna, because Krishna, may provide you. First thing, he may not provide you, and if that's the case, you just accept it because Krishna knows that it will not be good for you. But on other times, Krishna will provide, and that may increase your faith. And so, but will get a purification as well. So that is Krishna's mercy. When he doesn't give you what you want, it's Krishna's mercy. When he does give you what you want, it's Krishna's mercy. When he gives the purification together with getting what you want, it's Krishna's mercy. But the most important Krishna's mercy that we want is to develop attachment from him. And this is the ultimate message of Srimad Bhagavatam, is complete detachment from matter and complete attachment to Krishna. So that attachment is the ultimately what Krishna's mercy we are praying for, and as exemplified by Narottam Das Thakur, and that he's praying to spiritual master. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified, and with that purified consciousness is begging for the ocean of mercy, that actually it is required, not just a drop of mercy, but in one sense we are so conditioned and so attached and bewildered in this material world that we need an ocean of mercy. and to be able to, and that is our hope. In one sense, we may feel hopeless when we're facing through so many challenges, attachments, difficulties, and we see where is Krishna and all this. But we realize that we need an ocean of mercy, and we're begging for that ocean of mercy that is represented by spiritual master, and that he is distributing the mercy. Or Lord Nityananda is a direct representative of Nityananda or Shrimati Radharani, and that mercy is coming through him to help us and ultimately to develop attachment, attraction to Krishna, because it will be almost impossible to remember. And in the long term, you can remember here and there, but in the long term, to remember someone always, we have to become attached to Krishna. So that's the ultimate mercy of the Lord. And then at the time of death, we remember Krishna and we go back to Goloka Vrindavan. No matter how painful and difficult the situation will be, because we become fully attached to Krishna. And although the body is failing and we're leaving everything behind, our focus is Krishna. Is there any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am. You got 5 minutes.
I heard Srila Prabhupada was called Down with the Titanic or something like that this morning. I was listening. And he was talking there about knowledge, and he was saying, even you do not know how to read, that is no problem if you know Krishna is God. And he was kind of clarifying, because there could be a misinterpretation of knowledge in terms of, regurgitation of facts, figures, and slokas, but it may not be displayed, by the way the person behaves. So the person's behavior would actually, be the sign, would be the demonstration of his level of knowledge, isn't it? In fact, Sri Ramanuja has been doing a series of talks about knowledge, what it really is, in 13th chapter. So humility and pridelessness are two of the symptoms. He says, besides this, wherever there may be is ignorance, which is interesting because a lot of people that have knowledge, they're very proud of it as well, which kind of invalidates, isn't it, all the knowledge that they have, So I just thought that was an interesting reflection on the phenomenon of knowledge.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good point. That our learning has to manifest in a character, and especially humility. Definitely. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.